George, another film that we've had a chance to see that's out this week is Reality, which is a film that is on, it's an HBO product coming out on their service called Max, that rebranded
in the States,
Max
yeah.
In the States.
It's got a cinema release here.
And just, it's quite an interesting film. It's 80 minutes long. And just straight coming out of it, did you know what this film was about?
No, I knew nothing about what it was about. I'd seen the poster, which was Sydney Sweeney's face, and it says reality. And I honestly thought science fiction.
Yeah.
Reality.
It does
slightly
come
distorted
across
look.
that
I was like, oh, okay.
a little bit. And I think, I knew coming out of this, I obviously knew the story that it touches on, but I didn't know the person behind it and how that all came together. And I think coming out of that film, I think we agreed. I don't really want to spoil that for people who haven't seen it. So we are going to sort of be talking very delicately about it and what it tries to do, but we're not going to reveal sort of how this film sort of unfolds and what it has to say about whistleblowers and people who reveal stuff to the people. And I think there's an interesting conversation to have about that. Yeah. But what we essentially have with Reality is it is an American drama film directed by Tina Slatter, and it is based on a true story. And what we have in the opening is a real interrogation transcript from actual dialogue that happened in an FBI interrogation.
Yeah, an FBI audio recorder.
Audio recorder. So the FBI basically have audio recorders, and what we are seeing is a dramatized version of everything that was said. And
and everything is verbatim. That's the key. That it's
verbatim. And I think at one point it plays real audio and then very quickly mixes in the audio.
But every single word and everything is verbatim with what was said in the transcripts.
And so we meet Reality winner played by Sydney Sweeney, who I think is very much sort of she's been such a huge star coming off of White Lotus and also Euphoria, and I think this really has sort of taken her away from potentially being typecast as a disaffected teen. I don't think she is, but sort of graduated from that. We have Sydney Sweeney playing Reality winner, who is in her car coming back from grocery shop when she gets a knock on her window.
And we should say at this point, we've just seen her at work, in a very nondescript work.
Really just
office
in a cubicle with television screens on, really just set the basis of settings of who she is, which they come back to. And you just get a very polite knock on the window, and it's revealed to be an FBI agent, and they're asking her to come out of the car, and they need to speak to her. And what plays out essentially is almost in real time, actually, you could say, a very sort of polite and by the books play-by-play of what happens when the FBI in civilian clothing approach someone in a domestic neighborhood setting, needing to tell them that they have a warrant to search them, their car, and their house, and how they sort of navigate the awkward uncomfortableness of neither party knows why each person is here and what potential situation could occur. And it sort of unfolds this mystery of why is this seemingly normal person being given like what looks like the highest treatment of security from the FBI? Yeah. What information do the FBI need to get from Reality winner? And why has this all happened in the first place? Yeah. I'm a little bit apprehensive to reveal more than that.
That's good enough, yeah.
And we talked about it feeling like science fiction. It also felt like something. It always sort of tricks you into thinking it's something so much darker than it actually is, so much more sinister. There's this sort of like overly polite, by the numbers textbook dialogue, and I thought it was really interesting. But George, I'm sorry, that was someone else.
That's the FBI.
But George, just Reality. How did you?
Well, that's
get
it.
on with it?
So like you, I went in not knowing anything about the story. And having a complete but obviously I knew just before I watched it, essentially the kind of vague what it was going to be. But like I said, prior to that, no idea. Yeah, I was really, really impressed by Reality. I think it's a really interesting film. Yeah. I think that what you have is a very gripping story. At a basic level, it's a very gripping story. Yeah. And I watched it with...
That's all to do with how it presents itself, because on paper it almost
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I should say it's based off a play. It's based off a play. And what I think is brilliant about it is that although when I was watching it, I was thinking, this could be a play, I never thought this was stagey.
No.
It's not like when we watch The Whale, when you're like, this is just a play. Yeah. This is a play being filmed. This is based off a play, I believe it was called Is This a Room? I never felt that this was stagey, but it is clear it has good bones dramatically. The whole situation has good bones. So what I found when I watched it with my girlfriend and my flatmate is we were immediately leaning in. You could feel, you could just feel people transfixed and watch. And we remained like that for the entire 83-minute runtime, which I think is really great. It's the kind of film that you and I like.
Yeah,
83 short.
It's the kind of
tight,
storytelling I wish we had way more of.
Concise and to the point. And I was actually amazed at how
a focus on like performance, relationship versus just like the biggest idea we can think of.
Exactly.
Right? How do you take an idea?
How do you
a
concept and this obviously takes place just in her yard and her house.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how well a verbatim transcript serves a dramatic telling.
Yeah.
Because your risk with verbatim theatre, obviously originally, but verbatim in this, is that you can sometimes, it can be mundane and it can sort of chafe at the restriction of reality, no pun intended, reality placed upon it, whereas obviously you're lacking the dramatic license to go and explore that in a different way. But what the transcript is in itself very tense and very gripping, and I was really impressed by that. I think what the film is successful after being a very serviceable, gripping thriller, is also the fact that we are accustomed in seeing in films the FBI interrogations to be sort of highly dramatized in a very sort of glossy, sterile lit room. We think we know, and we've seen it countless times in a very sort of genre setting. But what I think is amazing, what you were kind of saying there, what is fascinating, is how a procedure is operated. Yeah. How an FBI procedure is operated. You have this great double-hander with the two FBI agents who are sort of leading the conversation with reality. One played by Josh Hamilton and the other played by Marshawn Davis. And Josh Hamilton's an actor who turns up in lots of stuff I quite like. He kind of came up in the 90s with the likes of Billy Crudup and Ethan Hawke, and he was the lead in like Kicking and Screaming, and he's in a lot of Noah Baumbach stuff, but he's also in Manchester by the Sea. He's the lawyer who has to tell Casey Affleck that, Jay wanted you to be the Guardian. And he's also the dad in 8th grade. And he presents this fantastic, mild-mannered, swept over hair, glasses, looking like an IT consultant. Shirt tucked in.
Almost a Walter White before.
Basically, flip pad notebook. But contrasted with Marshawn Davis, who is big, muscular, imposing, and looking at her in a kind of different way. And what I find interesting is that, yes, you have the transcript of what is written, but then the creative license comes in with the blocking.
I was just going to say the blocking was so purposeful.
So interesting. And when you really get to the nitty gritty, when you really get to the essential conversation at the heart of this transcript, you have, Josh Hamilton placed in the foreground and Marshawn Davis in the side, and then moved. And I could just see the drama at work, and I really like that.
There's also this sense that they are aware of the fact that they are two men approaching a woman on her own in her property, asking to walk in and do it. And so obviously they are completely sensitive and by the book for that. But then there are so many times that they realise the fact that they are two men has an advantage over how this person could potentially move or run. Like there's this moment when they get her phone and they're like, "How do you unlock it?" And she goes to reach to help. So, no, don't touch it.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
It's almost like peak like anxiety of a Russian spy could quickly like flip the sim, like all of that stuff, and you're like, oh my god, like you're not allowed to let someone touch your phone.
It feels such conflict, which is great drama.
And how confused is she versus how confused should she be?
Yeah. And like their conversation at times runs that really uncomfortable line, which it's almost like threateningly polite.
Yeah.
But not aggressive, but it's just below aggressive.
I'm going to ask what you want to do, but I can do whatever I want.
And then there are things you're like, is that a tactic or is that a genuine question? So when Josh Hamilton really starts to try and talk to her, he's, like I said, very benign, gets his notepad out. He says, excuse me, I've got to make notes. And then it's like, do you want water? Do you want water? We can get you water. If you want to sit at any time, just have water.
I'd be happy to sit.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be happy to sit.
But we all sit. If you want to sit, just sit. And it's just this kind of bewilderment. And you're like, is this a deliberate tactic? And it's really fascinating, and also taking place in a very, very banal setting. Yeah, this very basic home,
condo, even
faceless Middle America. It's in what's the name? Alexandria, Georgia. Something like that. I don't know. Forgive me. I know it's not faceless, but it is. Generic Midwest. And you have this very, very interesting film. Yeah, Sydney Sweeney, great. It's great to break away from being a bratish teen. Not that she's bad in this role. She's great, but like really gives us something. And then I also, it's very informative because I was like, with where the film goes.
Yes.
I was like, I see. I was aware that, but I wasn't aware of that in my ignorance. I now connect it together, and I think it's a really it's just a solid, good watch. It's one of those things we always talk about with like a good 90-ish minute film, tightly paced, tightly created. There's no fat on it at all. There's no excess because it sticks to the truth, the true drama at the heart of it. And yes, I agree. I love that idea, or very aware of that kind of wider idea of these men invading this woman's personal space and invading the home and invading. You could almost read it separately as like a home invasion thriller, but very slow home invasion, where it's like they move gradually from the garden
with permission,
into the house.
I think part of its genius for me was, the point sirens on our end, the point it makes in the end of the film.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to deduce from it politically, or how that frames that period of time and the thing that was done and the person involved, it does such a good job of letting you fill all that in as the credits roll.
I also
I was
just going to say, in case we just hadn't said, this is obviously, we said it was a real thing that happened, but it happened in June 2017.
Yeah, that's the time period it's in, and it really sort of goes, okay, here is a scenario, a very ordinary scenario that really happened to a seemingly ordinary person with very ordinary protocols, and then like at the end, it goes, this is what this means, and now I can go, instead of like spoon feeding me politics and cutting away to government or cutting away to another, or giving me loads of flashbacks I don't need. It just let me fill in everything, and now I know exactly how to feel about it. And I think that is just a brilliant piece of storytelling, because it let me figure that out myself. And I go, wow, the implications of the story that it's told are very, very fascinating and are worthy of a discussion beyond the film. The film didn't do all the discussion for me, which I really, really liked.
And it is the kind of film you finish and you think, I want to talk about it with the people who've seen it, and we wanted to engage in it. I agree. There was a point,
and it's a story you do know. Like you will know part of the story once it's revealed to you. You'll be like, oh, of course.
And I think that I just felt once I realized that the film was really working for me, I was like, this is really interesting. I've not seen something like this. I haven't seen something that is so inherently dramatic, almost theatrical, without being stage-like, or stagey. Yeah,
format-wise, it almost sort of lends itself to TV whilst being very cinematic and, worthy of cinema. Like it's a product of a streaming service. There's also a really great moment where obviously it starts with the two of them knocking on the window, very politely asking, and we do have a warrant. And then when sort of the situation is she's not fleeing or violent, and they call it in, and then like 6 black. Huge Chryslers swarm in, and you're like, oh my god, these are the stakes. Like, it's all seemingly very, and all the FBI are kind of in civilian clothing, because I'm thinking, you can't just turn up in a neighborhood with armed SWAT, like you'll start a riot.
And one of them is so like stereotypically dressed in the wraparounds, the Oakley wraparounds with like a white nylon. Yellow nylon shirt stretched over a big gut, and there's exactly that bit at the beginning where they've spoken to her, and she goes to reach for she turns towards her car, walks towards it to get something from the back seat, and an SUV just pulls up to stop that car from leaving. Just in case she was going to jump in the car, and it's like there immediately.
You just realise this operation has been thought out. We also did mention the fact that within the film are redacted pieces, and it almost like there are certain parts where it cuts to a white sheet of like FBI documented briefing, and it will show you the script as it's being spoken sometimes, and then it will go black, like 50 spy redacted. And what happens is the characters almost glitch out of the scene and sort of go mute, or they disappear, and it sort of glitches in this sort of Spider-Verse way.
In a way,
And you're like, oh, why is that? And it really adds to the tension and the mystery, which I thought was really interesting.
I think that, not to draw it to a close on like a pun, but like obviously the film's called Reality, but I do think it's that idea as well, when you're in that situation being like, okay, is this real? Is this happening?
Yeah.
Is this...
Again, like everything is trying to... We've all been trained to think that something much more sinister or dark is potentially going on. You never really know where you sit with it.
The way that the film goes, it can also be called Truth as well. It's like, like Truth, Reality. So,
and it plays on the fact that, when you are... It's like when you go through immigration at the US and they ask you about every question, where are you staying and who are you and how long you've been here, you just inherently feel guilty. And it really plays on that feeling. If you ask anyone enough questions, chances are they've done something wrong and they're going to feel guilty. So I thought it was quite good.
As you can tell, we really enjoyed it and we were really enthused by it. If you do get a chance to catch it, like I said, it's not a long film, really worth catching. That's Reality.
I'd be happy to talk about what the film actually was about. Maybe in a couple of weeks, if people send in their thoughts, I think I'd be quite comfortable to talk about the actual subject of the film and what it addresses. I think that'd be really interesting to have that conversation.
And as ever, you send them in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. pulpkitchen.com.